I told you that there was an R&B trio so talented, they provided vocals for New Kids on the Block, worked with legendary artists, and then simply disappeared? Lady Soul, 3 women, infinite talent, 0 recognition. Their names were Margo Thunder, Phaedra Butler, and Risé Engermann, and they represent everything wrong with how the music industry treats Black women artists. Stick around because what happened to these women after they recorded their music will shock you. One member's solo career trajectory will blow your mind. In the golden age of R&B, when girl groups ruled the airwaves and harmony was king, 3 women came together to form what should have been a legendary trio.
And so I held auditions and I put another group together called Lady Soul. And we got signed to Maurice Starr's label.
But instead of stadium tours and Grammy nominations, Lady Soul became a cautionary tale, a talent lost in the industry's machine. Lady Soul was an R&B trio that consisted of Margo Thunder from music group 9.9, Phaedra Butler, and Risé Engermann. On paper, these credentials should have guaranteed success. But in the music industry, talent doesn't always equal recognition. What makes the story fascinating isn't just their disappearance, it's what each member brought to the table before they came together. And what happened after they broke up, that's where the real story begins. But first, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why don't you know their names?
And that's how the 9.9 group started, is that we were Dimple's background singers. And after that tour, we moved to LA.
Before Lady Soul, there was Margo Thunder and the group 9.9. Margo is from the R&B music group 9.9, and her journey from that group to Lady Soul represents the kind of talent shuffle that happens constantly in the industry. Picture this. You're a successful R&B artist in a trio that's making waves. You've got the voice, the stage presence, the industry connections. So what do? You team up with 2 equally talented women to create something bigger, something better, something that should have been unstoppable. But here's what the industry doesn't tell you about being a Black woman in R&B. Talent isn't enough. Connections aren't enough. Sometimes even being perfect isn't enough. Former child prodigy and 9.9 vocalist takes listeners back to Soul School. Margo wasn't just talented, she was a prodigy.
I meet him, he takes me out to California. I signed to Capitol Records when I was 11 years old.
A child prodigy who grew up in an industry that chews up and spits out even its most gifted artists.
Don't you have any love in your heart?
And what is she doing now in 2025? It'll restore your faith in the power of reinvention. If Margo Thunder brought the group credibility, Phaedra Butler brought the industry connections that should have opened every door in the business. Phaedra Butler provided vocals for New Kids on the Block, Carne, and Sapphire. Let that sink in. New Kids on the Block. At their peak, they were one of the biggest acts in the world. Carne, a legend in her own right. Sapphire, the freestyle queen. Phaedra wasn't just singing backup, she was part of the machinery that created hits.
Baby, don't you give up on me.
So why didn't that translate to Lady Soul's success? Why did someone with that resume, those connections, that proven ability to make hits end up in a group that history forgot? Because sometimes being behind the scenes is safer than being in the spotlight. Sometimes being the voice that makes others successful is easier than fighting for your own recognition. But Phaedra's story doesn't end with Lady Soul's dissolution. What she did next will surprise you. And then there was Risé Engermann. Risé Engermann provided vocals for Sapphire, connecting her to Phaedra even before Lady Soul existed. This wasn't a random grouping of singers. This was a carefully constructed powerhouse of women who had already proven themselves in the industry. But here's where the story gets interesting. 3 women, incredible talent, industry connections, proven track records, and yet they couldn't break through. In an era when girl groups were dominating, when R&B was having its golden moment, when the industry was supposedly hungry for exactly what they offered, they couldn't break through. That tells you everything you need to know about how this industry really works. It's not about talent. It's not about connections. It's about being the right person at the right time with the right backing. And sometimes even that isn't enough. The late 80s and early 90s were supposedly the golden age of R&B girl groups. TLC was conquering the world. SWV was breaking hearts. En Vogue was serving vocal perfection. The template was there. The audience was hungry. The infrastructure existed. So what went wrong? Why did Lady Soul become a footnote when they had all the ingredients for success? Because the music industry has never been a meritocracy. It's been a game of politics, connections, and timing. And sometimes even having all three isn't enough. Sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. Lady Soul represents every talented artist who never got their shot, every vocalist who sang backup when they should have been front and center, every group that dissolved not because they weren't good enough, but because the industry wasn't ready for them. But their story doesn't end with dissolution. What happens next will change how you see the music industry forever. Fast forward to 2018, former child prodigy and 9.9 vocalist takes listeners back to soul school with the Mistreated and debut solo album R&B 101.
Your name should be Mistreated.
After decades in the industry, after Lady Soul's failure to launch, Margo Thunder decided to go solo.
I put out a CD called R&B 101, and I finally, let me show you the cover. There you go.
Think about that title, Mistreated. After everything she'd been through, the child prodigy who grew up too fast, the 9.9 member who never got proper recognition, the Lady Soul member who watched talent get ignored, she called her comeback single Mistreated. That's not just a song title, that's a statement. That's decades of frustration, disappointment, and determination distilled into one word. In R&B 101, that's not just an album title. That's Margo Thunder saying, I'm going to teach you what real R&B sounds like. After all those years of being overlooked, she was ready to school the industry. Check out Margo Thunder, a night of pure R&B soul with special guest performance from Key Jaffa at Catalina Bar and Grill in Hollywood on July 24, 2019. She was still performing, still fighting, still proving that talent doesn't expire. But what happened to Phaedra Butler and Risé Engermann? This is where the story becomes a mystery that even the internet can't solve. Two women who provided vocals for major acts, who were part of what should have been a successful trio, who had the talent and connections to make it in the industry, and they virtually disappeared from public record. This is the reality for so many talented women in the music industry. They give their voices, their talent, their youth to an industry that uses them up and moves on. And when their moment passes, they don't get farewell tours or greatest hits albums, they get silent. Phaedra and Risé represent the thousands of talented artists who are forgotten not because they weren't good enough, but because the industry only has room for a select few. For every Whitney Houston, there are hundreds of women just as talented who never get their chance. But our investigation into their current whereabouts in 2025 revealed something unexpected. In 2025, the music industry is supposedly more inclusive, more diverse, more willing to celebrate forgotten talent. Streaming platforms have made it easier than ever to discover lost gems. Social media has democratized fame. So, where are they now? In an age where viral videos can resurrect careers overnight, where nostalgia is big business, where R&B revival acts are selling out arenas, where are the women of Lady Soul? Here's what we discovered. Margo Thunder is still fighting, still performing, still refusing to let the industry's neglect define her legacy.
What do you do?
Her solo career might not have reached the heights of her talent, but she's still here, still singing, still proving that the real soul never dies. As for Phaedra and Risé, they've chosen privacy over publicity. After giving so much of themselves to an industry that gave them so little back, they've earned the right to live their lives away from the spotlight. And honestly, good for them. Sometimes the greatest act of self-preservation is knowing when to walk away. Sometimes success isn't measured in charts and sales. It's measured in peace and dignity. Lady Soul may not have conquered the charts, but they conquered something more important. They proved that talent exists everywhere, that the women singing backup vocals might be more talented than the stars, that the groups you never heard of might have been better than the ones you worship. Their story is a mirror reflecting everything wrong with how the music industry treats Black women, the unrealistic expectations, the impossible standards, the way talent gets overlooked for marketability, the way real artistry gets sacrificed for commercial appeal. But it's also a testament to resilience. Margot Thunder's continued career proves that real artists don't give up. They adapt, they evolve, they find new ways to share their gift with the world. In 2025, when we're finally starting to have conversations about the artists who were overlooked, Lady Soul deserves to be part of that conversation. They deserve recognition not just for what they accomplished, but for what they represented: uncompromising talent in an industry that demanded compromise. What can today's artists learn from Lady Soul's story? That talent isn't enough, that connection isn't guaranteed, that even when you do everything right, success isn't promised, but also that your worth isn't determined by charts or sales, that real artistry transcends commercial success, that the voices singing harmony might be the most important voices in the room. If you're an artist watching this, remember, Lady Soul had everything going for them except timing and luck. Don't let their story discourage you. Let it inspire you to keep going, to keep creating, to keep believing in your talent even when the industry doesn't. Lady Soul, Margo Thunder, Phaedra Butler, and Risé Engermann. 3 names that should be legendary, but instead serve as a reminder of how many talented artists get lost in the industry shuffle. Their story isn't about failure. It's about the failure of an industry to recognize and nurture true talent. It's about the cost of being ahead of your time, behind the scenes, or simply not fitting into someone else's vision of success. In 2025, when we're streaming their music, what little is available, we're not just listening to songs. We're listening to dreams deferred, talent unrealized, and voices that deserved to be.